Hey guys, welcome back to Brick System Brothers. Got my train bridge featured today. It's been done for a little while, and I've mentioned it many times, but have not yet got it on its own little video. So, just do a little inspection of this thing, kind of go over some of the things I wanted to talk about. And I've also published it on Rubricable now. So I did build this in Studio, digital build, and then use that model to export PDF instructions if this is something you're interested in building yourself. A couple parts in here that are going to be harder to track down in like a higher quantity, and the blue rails are considered vintage, so those are not really produced anymore. They haven't been for quite a while. So if you don't have blue rails already, you'll have to buy some. They're not too hard to get, but I used quite a few, especially the 16 straight sections are used as the railings up top. So quite a few of those if you are going to be building this from your own collection. So first thing, a demonstration of the main purpose of the bridge would be elevating Lego trains. So there are the standard track sections connected up here. These are just 10 sections of straight track all connected together. You will have to put the tracks together in a line before you put them down on the bridge clips or the brackets there. So it's covered in the instructions, but just the way that the tracks themselves connect, there's an intermeshing part that you can't, that's kind of an order of operation thing. But the bridge, pretty sturdy, has no trouble holding up the train here. Really having the arch section and then doubling it all up is doing quite a bit for the stability. So longitudinally, I can move this thing and give it some force. But then the short direction, you can see it has a little bit more rock than I would like, than you'd like to see in a train bridge perhaps. But overall, even specifically if you're just going to do like a static display and have some trains up on the rails, I think stability wise it's pretty solid. It's not really going to give you any trouble. We've also got a nice tall and wide section of arch here. This is 32, 64, and then there's another, I think there's another 8 studs worth on each side of these by the time you get all the way across. So 72 studs worth of width. Not all of that's exactly usable because the arch does come right down to that base. So I'd say you definitely got 64 studs worth of width here. It's 2 of the old road base plates. Got some cars. I guess we're, yeah, let's Americanize this here. There you go. Interstate. So yeah, you can put 2-lane highways with the old road plates. You could also look at using the new road plate system, and I actually don't have the actual 8x16 roads, but I have this kind of similar half-studded one, or like I guess they're 16x16. So this is the new road system, except it's all tiles. I don't have any, but I can show what that would look like. Basically, it's going to be for every 32 base plate, you're going to have 2 of the 16 road sections. But what's nice about the road section is the tiled ones, it gives you a little more freedom with how you're going to be splitting that up. So you could do 3 lanes in 1 lane with dividers, and if you've seen the road system, you kind of have an idea of what that would look like. So there's plenty of room under the bridge to do roads. There's also plenty of room to do more runs of train track. Got some down here, I guess. So What you'll want to be careful for is the height. You want to have plenty of clearance for trains, so you'll probably be coming in a little more than you would with a road. Train tracks are 8 studs wide, so if you wanted to have a rail yard going underneath the bridge, there's plenty of room for that. Otherwise, if you want to have some spaced out, you could even do a little bit of both. So, plenty of span for running all kinds of different things underneath the bridge. Of course, I think it'd be interesting to see something like this in a display with a river going underneath. So depending on how you would model a river in a Lego display, this would be a large investment of pieces. Otherwise it could just be painted plywood. But yeah, there's plenty of width and plenty of height here to get a train displayed up quite a ways above whatever your standard base is for a layout. And I don't have a functional layout at the moment, so this is just kind of a standalone project. Eventually, it'd be interesting to actually build more copies. What we have here is a standard T-section, and then I've built 2 of those. But really, you can just repeat this T-section for however long you want. And as long as you have, you know, at least one arch, it's self-supporting. It's not going anywhere. So, really needs at least 2 T-sections to be stable. That also is worth mentioning when actually moving the bridge around. So, I have these 2x plates attached on the bottom for extra stability. It doesn't really need these. It'd be fine without them. It's just giving another brace across the bottom at the moment. And once it's actually attached to, say, a base plate, or it's placed in a layout, this doesn't need to be here. But for moving things around, it's nice to have on there. It gives it actually quite a bit of rigidity, especially if you're handling it in line with the bases. So, yeah, as long as you're conscious of where you're grabbing it, it's pretty hard to mess it up. I don't think I'd want to lift it from the middle too often, especially without a brace here. In fact, I think without this brace, it just kind of bend in the middle instead of doing that. Same thing goes for lifting it from the outside ends and the edges here. Not really the best place to do it. I think as long as you're in line with the base pillars, that's really where there's a lot of bracing and triangles coming together. And that's your best bet for moving things around. And it behaves if you have it there. So, this is one of the largest mocks in terms of dimensions that I have built. I've definitely built things with more pieces. The Patriot Hill Manor House is a much more dense mock. But the overall width here was something like 3 to 4 feet, I want to say. I forget the exact measurement. I happen to know it in centimeters. It's 130 centimeters, and that's what I put on the remarkable cover image, but I do not know it off the top of my head in inches. Can't convert that in my head to exact measurements. But so that's the length of the bridge, and of course, for every T-section, you're adding another one of those multiples, so can kind of extend that direction. Width is going to be your standard track, which is 8, and then there's another, I don't know, stud and a half worth on either side, so it's 10 or so studs wide up here at the rail, and then it's actually wider at the bottom where this base does flare out a little bit, just for some support. The way that that's constructed, it's widened out, so maybe 12 to 14 studs wide at the bases. And then the height, significant height here. My row house is in the background, kind of putting that in reference as 3 stories, 2 to 3 stories high. By the time you're up on the track level, it's pretty close to being in line with the roof of the 3rd story of a modular building. So 3 stories off the ground, at a minifig scale. And then actually getting underneath this arch up here, I've got a little measuring stick. So each one of these are 5 bricks tall, so you've got 5, 10, 15, 20, and then 21, 22. And when you get to about 22.5 bricks of height at the max, then to actually get to the top of the bridge, you got 23, 24, 25, 25 and 2/3, 26 bricks high in Lego units. So nice little scale stick that you can build just to kind of put things in reference and get those dimensions. The blue color kind of color locked to the rails. I think these date to the 60s and 70s. What's interesting about these rails is, since they're individual, you need 2 different sizes. You need one for the outside radius and one for the inside radius. And that's what allowed me to do a little bit of slight, with the different radii rails in here. So the arch is built from the inner radius, and then there's a few more supports that have slightly less curvature that are going in here, and those are the outer radius rails. And then the straight sections I used up here to make the railings and kind of have a cohesive look for the entire structure. If you don't want to bother getting a hold of the straights, the same thing can be done with some 1x8s connected in the middle. You can connect those back here because this is set off from the tracks by a plate when you look at things going down to the bracket. But significant number of these rails if you don't have those already. And these, easier to get in blue. They do exist in light gray, but I think the blue makes for a nice kind of striking appearance for the bridge. And on Rebrickable I've called it the blue steel train bridge. So, like a painted steel bridge in this blue color. And that also helps the gold highlights to pop out a little more. So blue, gold, and gray are the main colors. There's a little bit of black in the structures where I've tied the tracks in, but for the most part, going off of the blue rails and putting in the substructure with the blue color for this bridge. Now, where would this video be without a nod to the original blue steel train bridge as featured on this little pamphlet? I think these are set numbers or service pack numbers, 150 through 155, skipping a few in there, but this was a little publication, I want to say 60s or 70s. This is more of Bricksar specialty information, but yeah, the image here would have been something that employees built to demonstrate the possibilities of using the rail pieces beyond train track assembly. So I know that this has been duplicated in the community by a few fans throughout. I've seen it on Flickr and different layouts. So this was the starting point for the idea of building a train bridge with these rail pieces. But instead of actually duplicating the existing model, I wanted to take it another step and do something original with the design and really look at the potential of the semicircle arch with one of these rail curves instead of kind of limiting that. But some nice reference here that again closely tied to what I am doing with the model and with the blue rails. So this bridge is complete. Kind of shelving the project for now. I did want to get a video out dedicated to the bridge on the channel, and it's also on Rebrickable now. Finally got that published. I usually try to keep Rebrickable mocks and featured projects on the channel in about the same time frame. Sometimes I'll put something on Rebrickable that will not be featured, but if it's going to be on both, try to keep those somewhat close together. So bringing both of those into focus, and now moving on from here. More of a standalone project, but if I ever get a nice layout going at some point, I would have this integrated with that somehow. Just looking at a larger space requirement for a train layout specifically is what this would need. Otherwise, I would also consider this as a display piece. So especially if I could get an engine up on here, not necessarily the high-speed passenger rail. I think this would look better with a steam engine or like a classic American locomotive. I think that would pair up with the steel bridge better than some of the standard passenger trains. But just for demonstration, also I don't have, well, I guess I have the My Own Train engine from 2001, but it doesn't have drivers and it doesn't have moving pistons, so at some point I'd like to mock up something like that. That would be a good train to display on the Blue Steel Bridge. So, well, we'll maybe keep an eye out for that in the future. I don't know if that's going to be anytime soon, but that's something that's on my backlog in terms of what I'd like to build eventually. And eventually being the key term there, because I don't even know if it'll be this year. It might just have to sit on the back burner for a while. But got the bridge done now, so just waiting on the train. And we'll keep our eyes out for that, but that's it for today. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time on Brick System Brothers.